Welcome to the lighter side of the dark side. It's your weekly freak show here on Renegade Radio, iHeartRadio, YouTube, all podcast catchers, even Spotify, because I'm a whore, I don't care. It's Dark Mark, the goth comedian, and as always, everybody's favorite horror writer, Nicole Six.
Good evening.
It's a very interesting show because, you know, I know how you love the author shows when we have authors on, they talk about the
Mhm.
writing. Well, we have an author on tonight, but not only is he an author, he is the owner of the #1 antique store in Chicago. He's lived many lives, and there's so many facets to this guy. Just coming from the house scene in the '80s to now, he's selling dead people's things, and that's the title of his book. We're glad to have him, Duane Scott Cerny.
Hey, it's good to be had.
Thanks for being on, Dwayne. And I would be remiss, and I'm going to get it out of the way right away to thank Amber LeMay and Russell from the Amber Live Show for hooking us up and hooking this show up. Because if I didn't say that, Amber would kill us and would never let us on her show again. So I will say that right up front.
Yeah, they're the best. Just
Yeah.
the best.
And how are you, Dwayne?
I'm good. I'm good. Excited to be here.
Did you work today? Were you at the store today?
Yeah, I worked on pulling things together just for you and your viewers.
I appreciate that. Before we get started, because I got to keep up with your energy. You've been working all day. You're ready. You're shot out of a cannon. Nicole is adjusting her camera. She's really energetic. So I got to get into the swing of things. So that's why I got this. Ray's energy drinks. These are the best energy drinks that you can get. You can't get these at 7-Elevens. You can't get these at supermarkets. You get these in gyms or GNCs, or even better, by using our code, which will be in the description of the show on YouTube and on all podcast catchers, and you get 15% off a case. Now, Nicole has tried and she loved the Voodoo Fruit Punch flavor,
Yes.
the Baja Lime flavor you really liked, but
Yep.
I think you have a new favorite, and I have it right here. That is the Galaxy Burst, because I gave you one of these the other night and you loved it.
It was delicious.
It's very much like a fruit punch, not even a fruit punch, a fruity pebbles sort of thing, and it's really really tasty, just delicious. Matter of fact, and the best part about Ray's energy drinks: 0 calories, 0 carbs, 0 dyes, 0 crash. That is good. I love that. Our other sponsor, we have a new sponsor, and nobody's getting any younger. And in a society where we're encouraged to hustle harder, sleep less, and work more, you may find it difficult to relax and be in the moments. Performance issues in the bed affect millions of men like you and I. But finally, there's something that works. Meet Eddie, the smarter treatment for erectile dysfunction. Eddie is a clinically proven, easy to use, wearable device designed to help men of any age strengthen and maintain their erections. Call 737-301-6111 to speak to a licensed nurse, or visit eddiebygiddy.com and be the best version of yourself. eddiebygiddy.com, where innovation meets ED. And you can also use our code, which is DARKMARK20, and you get 20% off your order. So be the best man you could be and please your partner. Get eddiebygiddy.com. And as a bonus, you never know, maybe 20 years from now, it'll be an antique, it'll be a collectible, and you could sell it for a profit. Go get eddiebygiddy.com. Dwayne, have you ever found sex toys that were worth, or sex accoutrements that are worth a lot of money in your travels?
Funny you should ask. Here's a segue here. Well, let's see. The latest one. This didn't happen to me.
The latest one.
The latest one. Oh gosh, because I'm glad we do a whole segment just on that. But good question. The latest one is a friend of mine had told me he was doing a clear out of this professor's house, and it's always the professor's house. If anybody's wondering.
Somebody in charge, somebody in authority.
The kinkiest shit, I can say that. And so they told him, you've got till I don't know, Thursday at noon to get everything out of the house, right? And he's finding all this latex stuff. Let's just go with that, right? Everything latex imaginable.
Our audience knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. And so he's pulling it out, and it's basically I always use the expression high end hoarders. Because most
Mm-hmm.
hoarders think of the low end hoarders, but high end hoarders are people who have got money and then just buy all this shit anyway, right? So he definitely had his kinks. So
You get what you pay for.
he's trying to get all this stuff out, and there's a knock on the door, and he opens it up, and there's this church group there. And then they said, "Oh, well, we were told that we were supposed to get whatever's left behind, and we're supposed to come on Friday, but we finished up early, so we thought we'd stop by." And he's going like, "What do I do with these two black dildos?" Uh, anyway, he says, "Okay, I'm done." Out the door he went. So those ladies had a little bit of a surprise.
I would imagine so. Probably a pleasant surprise. Who knows what they would? Maybe they went scuba diving. Who knows? Maybe they went surfing. Who knows? Who knows what you can do?
You learn something new every day, or at least they did. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. Yes. So yes, but as far as money, my favorite one, which was one of my dealers would do house sales, and he he had said, "Oh, I've got." They were going to have all these muscle men and physique magazines,
Mm-hmm.
and some of those sell for good money, especially if Arnold's on the cover.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, those are people fight over those, and
if you could find one of those vintage Power of the Dog ones, forget about it.
oh well, then there's that. He goes and he says, "I'm setting up the sale." He says, "What doesn't sell, I'll bring to your store." And I go, "Great, because I have buyers for that. That's fantastic." The guy goes, "This is a legitimate estate sale. There's sterling silver and furniture and antiques and blah, 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 blah." He takes all these muscle magazines and he puts them all over the dining room table. I mean, there's like 1,000 of them.
Right.
He puts them on the dining room table. He tells me this later, and I go, "Who did you think was going to come by? Mae West?" I mean, this is not the way to display these things. Well, the family comes in, as they usually do, just to go and pass through the house. And this was, let's call him Uncle Ernie, right? And they're going, "Holy, here we go, shit. What is all this? You can't have this." The neighbors, it's always the neighbors, always worried about the neighbors. Right. And he goes, no, these are going to sell. These are going to sell. They're throwing them in boxes. We're not having any of this here. Mm-hmm. And they throw them in the dumpster. So he calls me up and he says, "I tried to buy them and they wouldn't take any money. They just went right in the dumpster." And I'm going like, "It's paper, ephemera. It's all about condition, Right. That's what makes the value. If Mr. Atlas has a crease in the wrong place, forget it." So anyway, I said, "You know what? Try to pay the woman for it. If she won't take any money for it," I said, "just go dumpster diving. That's all you can do." He comes in the next week and he's just looking all forlorn. I'm going, "Oh fuck, he didn't get them. I knew it. God damn it." People, right? And he goes, "No, I got them all." And within, I would say, about 2 to 3 months, I sold $10,000 worth of those magazines.
Wow.
Yeah, on a dumpster. And here,
a dumpster dive.
Out of a dumpster dive. And he really did try to do the right thing. He's a great guy. But
would you have done better if they weren't dumped in the dumpster for?
They really weren't. I mean,
they were all still in good condition.
And he got them out, before the coffee grounds hit them.
Right.
So no, they were still in fine shape.
Good and
condition. The whole thing is like, you know what? Maybe the guy was gay. Maybe he was just like physique magazines. There's nothing wrong with that. These people jump to conclusions. Who knows? Who cares? So again, I could go on and on with those, but yeah, that's everybody's got something shoved in a closet or under the bed or wherever.
Well, that's the thing about the bodybuilding industry and magazines in general, is that they have that appeal. There's a lot of things that appeal to gay men and straight men simultaneously for different reasons.
The most popular, most regular, buyer of Playboy magazines now is women. It's not men. It's not men.
That's why it took the nudity out.
Yeah, and they want the vintage ones, and that natural look, and also just the fashions that are in there. I mean, Playboy magazine was just so well produced.
Right.
The
Well,
ads, I mean, like buying
especially if you get the vintage ones. Yeah, the ones from 60s, 70s. Yeah, sure.
yeah, oh yeah. So, and I mean, it's actually
But now 80s is antique now. So yeah, 80s, 90s.
Oh well, listen, my customers are, are
Gen Y.
90. You shoot yourself, So the market's totally changed, and it really changes like every 18 months. But there's always been an interest in erotica, things like that.
Mhm.
I don't think I. Oh,
Sure.
you know what? I'm going to say I don't have anything for you, but on that one, I think I might. Something here. Oh yeah, these are good.
It's always nice to have some erotica at arm's length.
It's just like that. So,
Oh, that's cool.
isn't that cool?
That's badass. Yeah, that's really
Right?
cool.
Right?
For our radio listeners, that's a poster smashing the vice brackets that framed. It's a burlesque show, I'm assuming, from the Cozy Theater.
Right. And there wouldn't have been very many of these. They're not well made, of course.
But I mean, obviously, that's from 40s or 50s, 60s,
Yep.
maybe.
Yep.
50s, I'm guessing, in the font.
Put that one there.
That's great.
Isn't that great? And then we can go on just from topic to topic here.
Well, no, because you gave me the perfect segue.
Well, this.
Yeah, let me see this.
I'm gonna have to back up a little bit for this one.
Oh, Sex Maniac. Now, if you're listening to this, this is I'm assuming a movie poster of a movie called Sex Maniac.
Yeah. If this is a B movie, this would be a Z movie.
Yeah, this is like Reefer Madness but for sex.
I mean, look at this guy's face. It scared the hell out of you.
He has an unconscious woman draped in his arms. It looks like he's about to rape her, and that's Sex Maniac. But once again, as with Reefer Madness, I'm sure, and it's from the Beverly Theater. As with Reefer Madness, it seems to be a bit of an exaggeration. Strange Love's exposed. What I loved about Reefer Madness is that unlike most people that smoke weed and just chill out, they're all and, they're trying to get you away from that. Now, this was the segue. You were talking about Playboy. Your father worked for Playboy.
My father worked for the production end of Playboy. Right. Yeah. So the graphic arts production. I always said, he wasn't in the editorial where I could be looking at the drafts of Saul Bellows or something.
Right?
Like, no, it's
so graphics. Does that mean he was responsible for the layouts and the fonts and things like that?
He was a photo engraver.
Okay,
that's really cool.
Yeah, he was a photo engraver, and that's something back then you had to go to school for. He'd started.
For sure.
So say that again,
no,
Nicole.
I said for sure. I was agreeing. What?
Say that again, Nicole. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with him. I just said for sure.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, really now computers have taken over to do that color separation and whatever. But I remember the one time he said to me, and my mother was not happy about this. This was also a cousin who had started this company, and they had other clients. And when Hefner came along, and it was just he had to pitch this because he needed credit, he had no money, and it was a big family brouhaha going. Are they going to take this guy on as a client? So they took a chance, but they were there in the in the beginning, and my father was really just a sweet, very innocent guy, but was very proud of his work. I remember one time he said to my mother, he says, "I've got this new machine at work, and I can turn a black woman white or a white woman black." And I thought my mother's head was just going to explode, or just this.
He was basically, this was for the young people listening. It was the Instagram filter before its time.
Yeah, right. And
that's why all the pictures look so good.
Yeah, and that was exactly what he was using it for. And then I've actually started to write a little bit more about that. And because I said that actually launched my first business, because very briefly, my father one day brought home these 50 proof sheets of the different models, in just different sizes. And I would always say, it would look like a young Martha Ray, but not not, it was just very disturbing.
I don't recall Martha Ray being in Playboy, but I'll take
you have to, go with me there. They're not,
okay.
not all of them were.
So these were like the rejects.
Well, it was just a mixture. It was what my father could bring home to show my mother the sample of the kind of stuff that he was doing. And again, she was not pleased that these things had even come into the house. And I remember he wanted to, so she just throw them out, throw them in the garbage can. And then she says, no, not in the house. You have to throw them outside into that garbage, so it shouldn't even be in the house.
Was she worried about you finding them?
I would have been happy if I had found them, but I was hearing this argument, and I'm going like, what are they arguing about? And I was like, I gotta see these. I just gotta see. They're all different sizes too, all black and white. So everybody goes to bed. I get up and I went outside and I got them out of the garbage. Here we go.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I'm going like, and they don't do anything for me. I'm going to be completely honest. But I'm going like, I can make money on these. How do I make money on these? It's just thinking. And I remember like all my friends, it was a big deal to get a copy of Playboy magazine. If your dad collected it, and everybody had a copy in the basement, and and they would know the difference between Miss July, from Miss.
How old were you at this time?
Whatever. Oh, I don't know, 13. The age.
Right. So everybody's going through puberty and
age of not so innocence,
Yeah.
But I always said I couldn't tell the difference between these women unless their breasts were so large they could hold tchotchkes, It just didn't mean anything to me. But I'm going like, all these kids, all these, and I'm typical one of these kids who gets the shit beat out of them at school, and I'm going like, there's an opportunity here. So I brought them to school, and I wouldn't sell them. I would only trade them for 10 Playboy magazines. And I didn't care how anybody got it. So basically they were just stealing them from their fathers so that I could get all these Playboy magazines and then sell them for like $10 a pop.
Smart, very smart.
Yeah. And I did that for, too long till I couldn't stand it anymore. So my locker was kind of this, this porno locker. And I was the strangest little kid to be doing that. But then all these guys who before would beat me up were being like, hey, this kid's got porn, that'll make you popular. So
they were all jerking off and you were making money.
I didn't care. It was a way to manipulate people, basically. I realized. And actually that's still a lesson. If you could find out what somebody collects, what they're really serious about, doors will open for you. If you can find the thing it is that they collect, and it can be the most, obviously if it's easy to find, wouldn't be much of a story. But
your buying and selling resale career started earlier than this.
Yeah. I was selling stuff off my folks' porch. Called it the porch store, which was a terrible name. But basically, I was just a consignment store for kids in the neighborhood who didn't use their toys. I said people would drive by and ask if I could recommend a good person to do aluminum siding. What's this porch store sign? Do you know a good roofer? Yeah. Then that was the first. I've always been out of college. The first 3 companies I worked for, they all went out of business. Well, the first one got bought out, and the next 2 went out of business within the course of like 3.5 years. And I thought I could go out of business myself. What skill is that?
Right.
So at like 22, 23, I was self-employed, and I'm now 63. So that was absolutely the way to go. And then
you hardly look it.
Pardon?
And I said you hardly look it, and
oh, thank you. Gee, well,
also I think it's a good segue to wish our friend and the person that was the reason we got a lot of press this week, Tommy Chong, an 84th birthday. That was the other day, and he doesn't look it either.
Oh,
so
no,
I don't know what you guys. It's so weird because speaking of days gone by, people used to look a lot older, a lot younger.
I know. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, you watch these movies and you think the guy's like 70, he's like 45.
Right. And then
like
years
the
ago,
Golden Girls are. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I think years ago, and people just didn't live that long to begin with. So,
Right.
if you were 60, you were, well, one one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. So, yeah,
So what?
But
Yeah, what,
even with
what
the Golden Girls, they were supposed to be in their 50s and they easily look in their 70s now. Like
yeah,
people,
true.
my aunt is 70 and she doesn't look 70 at all.
wait a second. The Golden Girls were supposed to be in their 50s.
Yeah.
Give me a break. B. Arthur. Oh, come on. Anyway,
Well,
no,
not all of
I
them.
guess
One
you're
of them
right
was
because
distinctly older.
Estelle Getty was supposed to be, their mother. So yeah, I guess, my mind's being blown. We gotta get off the Golden Girls because when other kids
I
were
have a
playing with,
question.
go ahead, Nicole.
When you were working for yourself, did you have any business partners?
I have had business partners. I've got one now. Um, Having a business partner, boy, it's got to be the right business partner. When I was doing legal word processing, that business got, we were so busy, I had to bring on somebody, and that just didn't work out. The house music, David Bell we got together and did that. I could never have done that without him. He was brilliant, brilliant.
Well,
Um,
I want to get into that because I haven't I've heard I've been listening to you on a lot of podcasts and researching you, but
oh,
you signed. You were there when house music was starting. You signed Frankie Knuckles,
yeah.
and Frankie Knuckles, if people don't know, is like the Chuck Berry, the Grandmaster Flash of house music, and that he was like the pioneer.
So, well, we put him on vinyl, and when people don't understand when there was vinyl, the first time vinyl came out, not
Right,
later,
not this hipster
not now,
vinyl now.
not now. And honestly, I was starstruck then. Why wouldn't I be? Right? And he came to a record release party that I had as a guest, and then said, "Wow, we should do something." But I'll be perfectly honest. At that time, I thought, well, of course he's got a record deal. Of course he's out there, And no, he was hustling, and they weren't house music. Really, yeah, it was the beginning. Yeah, and there were good stories, and there were bad stories, but it's certainly a Chicago story. And then we were we were the we were the gay label, which was
Right.
like, what is that about? But um, uh, but everybody on the staff was, and the art director, and the A&R guys, and but we all went to the clubs, and they would come to the gay clubs, and we would test songs out. Um, uh, and
Yeah,
so
but I mean,
mine would just
house started as a gay thing, like
Pardon?
disco, like techno,
Yeah,
like
yes, right, yeah, and clearly black music. I mean, we'd go to clubs, and we'd be
Right.
the only white people there, and everyone was extremely nice to us. It just, it was in that it was a magical time because everybody just loved the music, and for that, and not really even knowing where it was going to go. Although people were making licensing deals all over the place, and
Mhm.
that we figured out pretty quick, and then we started doing that.
Well, it's a
Um,
pretty magical time to be in Chicago because not only did you have the house music, but then you had wax tracks and industrial music,
yeah,
and you had John Hughes was filming movies there. You
yeah,
had Malkovich and
yeah,
Montaigne and David Mamet were doing plays there.
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like and this is all kind of on the underground,
yeah.
but it was like the coolest like art scene ever.
And then I would go and end up propping John Hughes films. I mean, what? How did that happen? So, and we still prop
And
movies.
I listened to your song or
Uh-huh.
your big hit,
Which,
which is civil was it
no offense, yeah,
civil defense,
yeah,
and it struck me that it's kind of a combination of both. There's like a little house and a little industrial.
yeah, yeah. The Get a Room mix is really good. It's been people have covered it and mixed it,
Right.
and
So,
they've re-released it. There's some compilation of like 12 different mixes of it. Some of them original and others that people have done. But I like that. And then I've actually had people do covers of my songs, and I like them much better than my own. So that's always cool when that happens.
but you really wanted to be a musician and pursue this with it.
And here, Nicole can relate to this. Yeah, I mean, I went to school on a poetry scholarship, and I don't know how that happened, but poems are lyrics.
Mhm.
Yeah.
poems are lyrics, and so I really was like, when I came out of school, and I remember when I got the poetry scholarship, my dad said, "What are you going to do? Sit on a mountain?" Which I thought was funny.
Even though you were being taught by the poet laureate of
Gwendolyn Brooks. Wow. And I'll give you one. It's funny because I've only started writing about some of that into the second book. And so very quick, there's a poem called Slalom. Slalom, slipping swiftly down a mountain, avoiding Buicks, dodging Volvos, skiing down a corkscrew noodle, my feet sliced red in the hot tomato goo, wet dreams of Prince Macaroni in our Wednesday afternoons. But I know we've got to stop skiing each other on the sly, on the slopes of your bed and the mountains of your body, because to me, living rent-free in your valleys is more costly than city slumming.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wrote that
That's good.
18. Yeah. So that's one of my favorites.
I
Thank
like
you
that
for
one.
letting me do that, indulging me in that.
No, please. You and Nicole can do poems all day. I got poems too. I've been published, so yeah.
They're lyrics. And so I went on and said, well, gee, let's just I can write lyrics for songs. That's great. I love that.
And Nicole's poetry book, Slow Burn, is available on lulu.com. And it definitely recommended. Everybody seems to love it. And Nicole, I guess this is as good a segue as any to talk about our other sponsor real quick.
Okay. So if you're needing something to relax and enjoy yourself, maybe crack open a book of poetry, I recommend Renegade Kush or Renegade CBD. You can go to renegadekush.com or renegadecbd.com and find really good quality CBD products.
RENAGADE, Renegade, Kush and Renegade CBD. So, and then, so you, all this happened. Now, this is the weird thing. I know you came on the show because, you know, we have a goth and horror bent, and we're gonna get into that very shortly. But I don't know if you're aware. My parents have been collecting and selling antiques my whole life.
No.
My father, especially my mother, definitely is. You know, they've done it together, but it's really my father's passion. Basically, I actually when I was a kid, when I was 10 years old, we went across the country. We were relocating from Miami to Colorado, and we did we went to swap meets and flea markets all over the country. Perky Owensville, Pennsylvania, like weird places. And he's been selling and buying and selling my whole life, so I'm familiar with the you know with all of this, and it's an interesting business, and I don't know if it's getting easier or harder because you were in it before Google,
before the internet, yeah.
Right.
Well, how old were you? So you're kind of doing the circuit with them. How old were you then?
Since I was a kid, since I can remember.
Going to the flea markets, and
we go to the flea market every weekend because they wouldn't leave us at home. So we would go to the flea market and be like, you know, just walk around. And then, you know, my sister and I were together. So, you know, we've been, and, you know, once in a while, you know, if there was something cheap enough, they buy it for us. But, you know, they you know, they set up and you know, and what's out, and they still do. Yeah. My father still does. He, and well, they do on eBay, and my father specializes now more in books, knives, and razors, and does a lot of gun shows and swap meets. But he just came into, even though that's not their specialty, a guy's baseball collection at his house, which included a transcript of the Shoeless Joe Jackson trial.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if they sold that or not, but that's on eBay. Which once again, that's
I'd be sending that to auction.
Yeah,
that's pretty rare.
Yeah, so it's so you were doing it before Google and before eBay. When I say Google, and still to this day, I mean, you can kind of slip away once with your phone and maybe check something out, but you can't really deal and look up prices at the same time. You got to have estimates in your head.
Well, that's just it. But everybody still has a computer in their pocket, right? So there's that.
But you were doing it before there was a computer in the pocket.
Yeah. So yeah, our thing would be one of the things we started was lunch boxes. So those metal lunch boxes, and I do not exaggerate when I say we have sold thousands of them. And so obviously the space ones are always the more desirable ones with the thermoses. Star Trek but every TV show had a lunchbox.
Oh yeah,
versions of a lunchbox.
What was your favorite lunchboxes again, Nicole?
I like the animated hero ones, like Superman or Batman or anything like that. That's what I was into. X-Men.
Well, and I like the ones with the 3D effect where they kind of punched out the characters in the lunchbox.
So were these vinyl or plastic?
They were the one I remember was aluminum. I don't remember all of them though.
Okay. Yeah, because the later ones they would go into vinyl, and then plastic, and people still collect those. Gosh, Lost in Space. But I mean, again, before eBay, it could be like I remember finding that in a antique mall in I think like Petaluma, California, or something, and they had $200 on it, and thought like, oh gosh, is anybody going to come along with that? And there's a woman in the booth holding it up and looking at it every which way. I'm going, please put it down, please put it down, please put it down. And she finally does, and I learned because I'm even young, going, okay, let her walk totally out of the booth, so she can't come running back, right? She's totally out of the booth, and I just make a beeline for it. You grab it, bring it up to the counter. I already had a pile of stuff. So these go with my things. And wouldn't you know, when she sees that up there, she had herself a fit. So I was looking at that, and she goes, well, you're not the short little guy who brought it up. He did. And that was, I think, well, it certainly paid for my trip. I mean, I'm going to say $1,000, $1,200. This is back then.
That's great. That's amazing.
Lost in Space, any of the space stuff, still
you snooze, you lose.
That's strong, but we had categories. So that was one, and a huge category, and the other one was dinette sets. That every little Raymond cutout diamond back dinette sets, and again, hundreds of them would be a miscount of how many we had, and we found one that was custom made, and it sat 24 people. Wow. So this thing is fucking enormous. And we were just, get boners over this going, oh my God, because we're always in colors and patterns. We've had this before, and how many we've had, but we've never had one like that.
Right.
And we sold it to Oprah Winfrey's book club and sold it. They didn't rent it. They bought it and then set it up in a bowling alley. Remember she had the book club? Yeah. That was when we had a lot of things with Oprah. And I've never met her, but we've done a lot of business with them, and her people. And they set up in the bowling alley for the book club, and then moved it to the cafeteria at Harpo. So yeah, they did well on that, and we did well on that. And I love it. Was just I've never seen another one of those. So again, categories.
Apparently, neither has Oprah.
Yeah, no. Sold a boat bar to Steve Dahl. Remember Steve Dahl, Disco Demolition?
Right.
Yeah, sold a boat bar to him. And like in the book, there's just all these celebs would come through, and I'd just be like,
Well, your cow was featured in Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, in the.
Tell Nicole that story.
Yeah, tell me that story.
Yeah, that's we'll tell you part of the story. And again, these stories are in the book, but a lot of the stories are kind of have O. Henry type endings.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that because you think you go, yeah, I've heard that. But then, whatever I'm saying, going like, you're not hearing the whole story. I'm giving you the Reader's Digest, but not necessarily the punchline.
And that's why I'm going to get your book for my father for Father's Day. He's
oh yeah, any I would say old timer, but anybody in the antique business kind of gets a kick out of it because it's. I don't write about what things are worth. That's not a price guide. There's every book out there is about that. I write about things and people. And how that is. So, my favorite part of the story, we'll talk about how I bought out a whole sideshow of animals, which I was not supposed to get. but I got them, and that alone is worth the price of the book. Let me tell you. So then I said, okay, what are we going to do with these things? And I thought, so Halloween was coming up, so we did a Halloween window with the two-headed cow, and
Now these are stuffed animals.
taxidermy.
Okay.
So, and this is actually a calf, a two-headed calf, which is not all that unusual, honestly. But anyway, but it's sweet. It was in really great shape. So put it in the window. Well, the phone just does not stop ringing, and some of the phone calls were like, "It's hey, we're having a fraternity party, and it'd be fun to have the cow there. How much do you want for the cow?" And I'm, oh my God, what the hell are they going to do with that? You can let your
I can only imagine. Yeah.
Horny frat boys and a two-headed cow. And it was like,
these are the same guys that bought your Playboys when you were in junior high.
right. And it would be so we had a lot of those people there, and I only want to buy one head, this kind of shit. So I was just hanging up on people. Well, I talked to them, but I was just tired of it. And so it's the end of the day, and this guy calls up and he says, "Hi, this is Oliver Stone. I was having dinner across the street at Mia Francesca. And I noticed your two-headed cow, and I'd like to rent it for my film Natural Born Killers." And I said, "Sure you are, buddy." And I hung up on it. And the next day, a very annoyed woman called, and she said, "I need to talk to the person who hung up on Oliver Stone yesterday." And I was this very long pause to go, "Well, yeah, that would be me." And she says, "Well, he's very unhappy. When he wants something, he wants something. What do you want for it? We need it for a week. And I'll have the guys there this afternoon." And so, I said, like a couple $1,000 because I thought this is why movies cost $50 million. Let's be honest. And then these two Teamsters showed up, and they'd had a crate specially built for the cow, and he was bubble wrapped and like the shrouded Turin. And off he went. And I would later find out that they were recreating the scene from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the cows were originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So the odds on that are just bizarre, weird. And then when it was really in the 25th anniversary edition, as where I think you can see it best, they mounted the cameras. They put the cameras behind the cows in the forest, so you would get the cow's perspective.
The two-headed cow.
Of the two-headed cow. So cinema Dairy Queen. I don't know. But
a lot of that was cut out, but he still paid.
Yeah. Well, right. So that was cut out, but I think in the 25th edition, he's in there. And but that was the first thing we propped, and that just opened the door. That opened the door to just TV shows and theaters and.
Well, there's so many. I mean, now there's so many. I mean, you got Chicago PD, you got Chicago Fire, you got Chicago this, you got Chicago
prop
that.
all those. If there was Chicago gynecologist, we would be propping it.
See, well, let me write that down. Chicago.
I'm not sure what we'd be giving them. That maybe they need a couch.
I'll bet you. No, I'm sure you have some gynecological things.
Oh yeah.
I know my father's bought some.
People love the medical stuff. But right now we're
doing a whole thing. Yeah.
We're doing. I probably shouldn't say it, but we're doing a show called Insight. So yeah, I think that'll be coming up, and we'll see if it gets picked up. And we've done films that were, we've done some. We did all the Chucky movies. We propped all the Chucky.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What type of props?
It'd be just a chair, a table lamp, the rug that he runs across. Just nothing. It was nothing really freaky. Road to Perdition. It just goes on and on. But I also want to say we have propped some of the worst things you would ever not want to see. Things that were never even released. Just terrible things. So we're not proud. But the prop people work so hard, and that's one reason this has worked is because it would be the same crews, right, from film to film. And so they're looking for something. They go, "Hey, those guys! I wonder if they'd have that." So and they go.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say they go everywhere. It's not like we have a prop business. There's a number of prop businesses in town.
However, and by the way, I hate Zoom. Zoom sucks. I hate the delay, but it allows me to talk to you. You're in Chicago. We're in LA, so I got to deal with it. You are the largest antique store in Chicago.
We're the largest multi-dealer antique store.
Okay. And it's a big store.
It's 20,000 square feet on 2 floors. It used to be an old furniture store, built in 1939, and it was slated to be a blockbuster video.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, look what happened there.
Well, not that it was going to be a blockbuster video, but
no, I think that's really funny. Like, that's really cool.
so, and the owner didn't want it to be remodeled into a blockbuster video. And then we came along, and he said, "Well, you know, I'll give you, I don't know, it was like 3 months to scrape together the money to buy this." And it wasn't a lot, but just compared to, you know, you could buy a townhouse in the South Loop for that. But it's a big white elephant. But it's great. It looks like it's a lot of South Beach. It's this Art Deco, and it's in the Edgewater neighborhood, which is by the Edgewater Beach Hotel. So there's this whole aquatic theme to it, of birds and reeds set into the tiles above.
It sounds really cool.
It's a really cool building. It's one of the blessings in my life, really. So bamchicago.com, www.bamchicago.com. You can see it right there, and some videos.
It's an antique store that is in itself an antique.
It is, and then again, it was a furniture store, so which sold kind of high-end things, you know, back in the day. But we've got like 75 dealers, so there are bigger stores, but stores that just specialize like in advertising memorabilia or something. There's some mass places for that and other prop houses. But as far as this is like an antique department store. I mean, you can go there and buy a Pokemon card for $25, or a snapshot, or a dining room set for $5,000, you know. And I love that. I love that we just sell to everybody. And the kids in vinyl, holy crap, you know, vintage clothes, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that is, you know, younger people come in and be like, I don't know, it's all this old crap my aunt had and blah, 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 blah. And then they'll buy a piece of vintage vinyl or a t-shirt or from a rock band or something.
Right.
And it's all it takes. And then the next time they're going, you know, I need a lamp. I don't have a desk. Well, through the pandemic, desk, right? So I always say it's kind of like the drug that gets them in.
It's well, I mean, it's ever evolving. I mean, you know, now I was going down on Melrose in a shop, and they had stuff from the 90s. That's vintage now.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, geez, it doesn't seem like that long ago. It was brand new.
Yeah. Well, these are 80s. I mean, from the 80s.
Right.
So, but generally, I always feel like, as things as we progress, everything just gets crappier. Which I think we can probably agree that's even the world as we go. It just seems to get crappier. But the quality of things. So things from the 80s and 70s, certainly the 60s. But you know, as things progress, they just kind of get. You know, you get into the 2000s, going, what are we? Where, you know, it's.
Well, I mean, they had that 20-year cycle where the 70s recycled the 50s, 80s recycled the 60s to a certain part, 90s recycled the 70s to a certain part, and it seems that we're kind of stuck in the 80s.
Yeah,
90s is kind of, you know, kindies a bit, and then I don't, you know.
Yeah, you get into the aughts, and I don't know. So
Nicole and I went to a Club 2000s, and it's very confusing. Yeah, there was a lot of 20-year-olds going crazy because they played My Chemical Romance, and we're like, I was there for the first time this happened. It wasn't that great.
Well, I mean, I was in college in the early 2000s, so I was still hanging out and doing like wild stuff. So a lot of that music is things I would go out and dance to when I was first able to dance. You know, when I was like 21, when I was first a lot into clubs. So.
Right. So that's nostalgic, but you know, it's weird now. You initially started out as far as, because my parents stole in a store in Colorado for a little bit, but they figured they kind of went back out on the swap meet thing. They thought it just wasn't enough traffic at that specific store to warrant it. But you started in a little store in a little space in the basement.
Just one little booth at the bottom of the stairs of the basement, selling lunchboxes and kitchen sets. Yep. And the older dealers would be, and I was about 30 then. I just was I kind of walked away from the label and the music and all that. Just got too litigious,
and a computer job.
In the computer job and all that. And there was just, it was kind of, and there was almost everybody from the label died. So just being honest, it was terrible, and I couldn't keep going by myself with the few of us that were left. So we were like 30 years old, something like that. But the old time dealers, and then I'm going to say that they were in their 50s or whatever. They'd go, "Oh, these guys selling this 1950s kitsch, with the fiberglass shades, and it's garbage and it's junk and da 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 da." And it didn't fly out the door, but it sold well, and we would price it to sell to other dealers, because you always want to be in the food chain. That's my advice to anybody: just be in the food chain, you'll be okay. But that became the whole mid-century modern thing. So again, it's just, we weren't the only people doing it. We were one of the few in Chicago doing it. But going to New York and LA, you could see they were dealing with this already. But those dealers would fly into Chicago, and still do, and buy, and because they can get much better money for it on the coast. So the Midwest is just a great place to buy. But yeah, started in the basement, and then that place went out of business. Here we go again. I took a lease on the store across the street, which was 1,500 square feet. And then we took another store and another store, and then the basement. And then we were there for 8 years, and then bought a building, which is the Broadway Antique Market in Chicago.
As with house music, you were ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And it's funny, until you actually mentioned it, I never really thought of that, honestly, because it's every day. It's just, you're just trying to. My thing is always,
the world is catching up with you, Duane.
Try to break even on things, Right. So, but
before we get to the haunted stuff and the weird story,
oh yeah,
a couple more questions. And like I say, I have these questions because I'm familiar with the business now. What is the biggest return on investment you've had on any item? Or just, is there an example of a really big return on your investment? Like something you found in a box for $1 and you sold it for hundreds or thousands of dollars, because I've got stories like that.
That's happened a couple times. But it's actually more, believe it or not, it's more satisfying when you've got something and it's in the store, for. I remember we had a pair of chairs, and I think they were like $3,000, which is a lot of money for us, but we knew they were good chairs. And everybody and their brothers, what's the best? And dealers going like, "I got to do 6 times my money." That's my favorite New York expression. 6 times my money.
That's a nationwide dealer expression.
Yeah, right.
I've heard it many times.
You know what? And it's fine. There's money here for you. I know there's money here for you. And we finally said, "Oh, fuck it," and we took it to Wright 20. And anybody knows Richard Wright, again, a brilliant, somebody who's just led the market. So Wright, like Frank Lloyd Wright, but 20.com. We gave them to him, and he sold them for $45,000. So that's my point, is that anybody could have walked in, and we would have been happy to sell them to you, right? And what? What? So that's actually more satisfying and there are the, here, I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with something. I'm
That's
sure.
Okay. That's a good story.
I'll show you one thing. I was going to show this, going like, if anybody wanted to see a big chest, I brought you a big chest.
Oh, wow. That's fucking awesome.
But, so this is one of my favorite things. I collect photography, and so this is a good one. So, you ever heard JoJo the Dog-Faced Boy?
Of course.
Yeah.
So
I modeled my look over after him.
So
that's a picture of JoJo the Dog-Faced Boy, and
that's a picture. And so, and he was
suit.
Yeah, looking very, because a lot of times he'd be like presented as royalty. That was his kind of gimmick there. And I mean, this was like, I don't know, $1 or $2. Right, and this is a $300 card, $500 card, easy. When you,
sure.
I'm being kind.
Well, I've
So
never seen a picture like that of the dog-faced boy. I've seen pictures of him.
I always love this one post. So this is a take it out of here, it won't glare. This is a wint, this is a guy who has a parasitic twin coming out of him. Sorry.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You really want to see this on YouTube? That's
Yeah. So the guy has another person coming out of him. But look at the name of the photographer. Can you see that?
Went.
Went?
Yeah.
Wint. And what's this photographer is known for is that his prints stayed. They went.
Oh.
Yeah, he was not a good photographer. If they're not as crisp, they're not as sharp. They just went. This is Lalu, who was pretty famous too. We'll do these quick since I got him here.
oh yeah.
Another
Take it down.
yeah, another parasitic twin.
Wow.
Lalu.
Yeah, that's like he's got like an ass coming out of his stomach.
Yeah, so
with legs.
a twin. This is
he got the arms too. I saw the arms.
This is Franco Lentini, who had a big career he actually had his own circus as an adult. But this one, not making this one up, this isn't probably a good example. So we're in rural Wisconsin in a barn, and I'm going through just frames, and they're just empty frames and pieces of glass, and there are no photos, just a box, right? And I turn up with this. So this is Franco Lentini as a child, and there's that he has a third leg.
Right.
Right.
Damn.
You never see photos of him as a child. And this I bring out to the woman who's in front of the barn. Did you find anything? And then I show her this. I just go, I found this kid, and she goes, "Oh, he's so cute. How about $1?" Right.
Nice.
It happens.
The other interesting thing about Franco Lentini is that he had 2 working units.
Wow.
Right.
He was very popular.
I can imagine he would. He could get a 2-for-1 deal at eddiebygiddy.com. But yeah, it's
there's a thought there.
yes.
And it's funny. I talk about this sometimes with people, and sometimes people get upset. But I'm using the language of the time. So I get in trouble from I think there's a little guy from Midget Village behind me. I don't know if you can see that. See that?
No, I see it.
It's an automaton from Midget Village. But then people go, "Oh my, it's a little person. You can't say the word midget." Well, it wasn't called Little Person Village.
Right.
I don't mean to be politically incorrect, but anyway.
You got to go with what they were saying.
I got to go with what it is, and then they scream at me. So this gentleman was an albino, but great.
Wow.
Isn't he great?
This guy has the best afro I've ever seen in my life.
Right. That was a Wesner. That was the photographer. Who's most desirable? You may know this. Certainly your dad probably does. Are Eisenmans as a photographer?
Okay.
Well, there's an Eisenman. Shouldn't really show you the signature.
Wow.
Anybody out there? That's what you should be buying if you're looking for
Eisenman. And that's for people listening. That's a gentleman with no arms, and it's signed.
That's the stamp you should look for the Eisenman. So he would have he had a photography shop in the Bowery, and his expertise was freaks and sideshow people. Again, everybody's going, "I got them freaks." Sideshow people wanted him to take your picture. He was the Skrabensky of his time.
Wow.
He was the guy. This is fun. See, you can get me going on these. So you have heard the expression "Bueno and Plutano"? You ever hear "Bueno and Plutano"?
I have not. Nicole?
It's actually
No, I haven't.
It's in the vernacular of Bueno and Plutano. It's just kind of out there, but I never knew that there was actually an act. And this is a wint again. So you'll notice the discoloration. And so these 2 odd little gentlemen, and they were the original Bueno and Plutano.
Okay.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
This is another went.
This is a went. Yeah. And now I know you're going to see this. And what does it say in the back? There's an expression. The Wild Men of Borneo.
Ooh.
Now, you've heard of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So those are the Wild Men of Borneo.
These are the wild men. They don't look all that wild, but that's how
and they don't look 60 to 70 years old either.
No, they age well. So the Tachi twins, we're going to do 2 more of these, then we'll talk about porn or something. I'm going to get this out of here. Well, anyway, so these are conjoined twins, Italy.
Wow.
Hachi twins. Yeah, they did not. They didn't live that long, so they weren't around, unfortunately.
Now, let me ask you a question. With these pictures of these vintage pictures of sideshow freaks, would European pictures be more valuable than American ones, or
Really,
it just depends on who's taking the picture?
it's really the personality.
Right. Who's in the picture and who's taking it?
Lucretia Zarate, I think was her name, was
Right.
billed as the smallest woman in the world, and she was making 10 grand a week at the turn of the 19th century. I mean, 10 grand. She was the highest paid performer in the world. I mean, that's Lady Gaga money.
Right. Absolutely.
And when she traveled by train, she had her own car. So these people were stars. And also, how one would even get these, you'd buy these from them. And if you were lucky, they signed them. So it was a way for them to make money. Although Lucretia, I think, had other people doing it.
Lucretia was the influencer of her day.
Yeah, it's so there's always kind of what gets me, and it's also what some of the things I write about in the book are people that kind of slip through the cracks, and we're all in this. We all think, oh, here we are in the future, and is it great? But there were some amazing people who came before us who were a big deal, and they're just kind of a footnote, and that always bothers me. And I think that people should be reminded. You know, I get a lot of questions about tattoos, and so I just thought I'd bring.
How you talking? Look at this guy.
Bring a tattoo guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we can go down to Hollywood and see 100 people that look like that, but back then it was very rare.
This is my favorite. This is my personal favorite because this is a couple different things. He's got a great mustache. We're going to start right there. He's a strong man.
Right.
He's very handsome. He has tattoos, and he has no legs.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but he was a strong man. That was the act. Yeah. And as the only one of these of him I've ever found, and it's an Eisenman. So clearly he was somebody, in his day. And then just for fun, and proving my point, I don't know how many of these I have. So when you go see a giant, I'm going to show you pictures of giants or little people. There's just too many of them. But my favorite thing to get would be their rings. They would sell this
wow,
ring.
look at that.
Massive.
Radio people, the ring is so much, and you got big fingers. You got big hands.
But
it's so much bigger.
And it looks like I may be giving you the finger here, but
I can fit around your neck. That's a huge ring.
How many do I have? I was thinking I'm showing this to you. I feel like Carrot Top.
Wow.
with the props. But it also occurred to me when I was pulling this together that if Carrot Top had black hair, he'd be Blacktop, which is really just a grinder profile.
Yes, I think I've seen Blacktop once or twice. But yeah, it's.
Anyway, that was my Carrot Top impression.
But
anyway,
but
I digress.
Where do you get? I mean, where do you find giant rings? I mean, that's are you just people have them in their homes? They don't know.
Other collectors, and a lot of times with collectors, they don't want to sell anything; they want to trade.
Right.
So again, going back to if you know what somebody wants, I write extensively about my friend Hy Roth, who had like the largest little person collection.
How ironic.
So I would find things for him, but he didn't collect any other kind of sideshow stuff. So I would have to trade, but I have to have something that he didn't have,
right?
Or card in better shape, very much like baseball or trading. Yeah. I'll
trade you two little people for a giant ring.
That kind of thing. And he's like, I don't want this giant ring. So then I got a box of giant rings. But then each one is from that giant. It said the guy's name on it, and whatever, how big he was.
And I've delayed this enough, but I mean, your book has such a the distinctive cover, which is from I believe from a China pattern or from
yes. We want to give a shout out to her. So that is an artisan by the name of Angela Rossi, and she sells on Etsy. under the name Beat Up Creations, and that was actually a China pattern
Yeah.
that I licensed it from her. And everybody should really check out her work. Is amazing. It's very disturbing. It's totally up your alley. Trust me.
We might have a future guest, Nicole.
Yeah, you really should track her down. She's fantastic. But I had to tone it down because people and my editors were like, I mean, you can't use this cover. I said, no, it's perfect. We'll just tone it down a little. So
but
it's
the book is
Gothic, actually. Yeah.
It's so gothic, but the book, although it does have elements of it, is not entirely that.
No,
but there are some chapters that are that.
Yeah, there's half a dozen paranormal stories. It's just things that happen to me and happen to others, and I'm just empathic to what's going on, and I try to relate what happened, and then you just make up your own mind. But it's not all that. And the second book, I think there might be one story like that. Vintage Confidential is coming out next month. Yeah, and that's more. I'd say it's sexier. It's gossipy. It has a total different tone. I mean, I would say I did the paranormal thing, but I told the stories that work best in that collection. And then This is a new collection of essays. And I think it's more adult, and I think it's funnier. So that's the other thing, because what's the point of doing
so you got the new book coming out next month?
Yeah. They're fighting with Amazon right now.
and Nicole, I just even though Duane has been writing poetry, writing lyrics, and just writing short stories and things his whole life. Now, what prompted you to take that creative writing course in New York with, if I'm not mistaken, John Cryer's mother?
Yeah.
What prompted you? You just always wanted to write a book, or?
She. I have a place in New York, and the woman in the basement was an actress, and she said, "This woman is just an incredible writing coach, and if I talk you up, she might let you in." And I was like, going, "Wow, that would be great, because I could use some help. Everybody could use some help." Gretchen Cryer calls me, very sweet. But it was just everything that's going on in the store and my life. It was not a good time for that. And I turned her down. And a year later, I called her up when things had kind of settled down. And here we go again. And I said, "I don't know if you remember me." And she said, "Stop. You're the guy who turned me down. Nobody turns me down." So yeah, she remembered. Talk about humiliating. And then I was there.
Oliver Stone and John Cryer's mother, the writing teacher. You turned both of them down, and that turned out to be the best thing that you could have done.
Yeah. I was there during Hurricane Sandy, so I was there for like 8 weeks. And it was a really intensive class in that you had to write everything right then, and you couldn't use a computer. And you'd have 10 minutes. She'd say, "Write down the 5 worst things that ever happened to you." And then she'd go around and say, "Give me 10 minutes of number 3. Give me 10 minutes of number 2. Give me 10, around the group." And then you had maybe half an hour to write it, 20 minutes to write it. And then you stood up and you did it. Right. And it was shocking. It was just shocking because everything had to be true. She'd say, "This is to the bone." The writing had to be to the bone. So this isn't a fiction class. So there were stories about sexual abuse and overdoses, and there was an alien abduction. It was and then it was really like, I realized later, almost like a reality show, in that every week somebody dropped out. Somebody just couldn't handle it because it was and the story
and yet your stories were the most unbelievable.
Yeah, right. And I was doing really good. I was proud of myself. And so actually Julie Gold was in the class.
Right.
I met Julie Gold there. She's going to be on Amber this next month. Everybody should check that out. She's amazing. Oh God. And so I was always like at about the top 3. So I thought I was, pretty good. And then
Can you give us an example of could you give us an example of stories you told in the class?
So, well, this is probably the best way was that I wrote a story, and everyone said bullshit. You can't write fiction, right? And it was about an estate that I had processed, and I'd been there with. I had brought in 2 other partners, and we were there for a couple days. And it was called "Traces of a Man Who Disappeared," and I totally flopped. I mean, I just flopped. I just failed. It did no. So I go back to Chicago with my tail between my legs. The rest of the class was great, but on that one, I go, how could I? And then I realized it was the first time I'd written about what I do, and I failed because they didn't believe me. So I just rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it, and on a lark, sent it into the New York Times, and I got a stack of rejection letters. Let me tell you, for my life, and I was like, oh fuck it, and. Michael Weinrip from the New York Times called me up, and he says, "You know what I do all day?" He says, "I read shit. I read shit all day." But he says, "Every once in a while, I can pick up the phone and make a call like this." And this story is amazing. I'm just going to say this: it predates the whole Jenner situation. We'll just say that. Yeah. So it's stumbling upon someone's life and secret life. So when it came out, it was very controversial, which was good, for me. This is kind of looping back into just going through one's possessions, and then you're a bit of a detective to figure out who was this person. I mean, they're not there to tell you their story, and yet I was able to figure out their story, then get permission to tell the story.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
That was good. And then this was at the time with Oprah, with everything was like 1,000 little pieces or 1,000,000 little pieces. There was some book that she just got was just bullshit, and she got everybody got in trouble for it. So they vetted me. It was like an atomic colonoscopy. That's what it was like. So but then it was. It was published. So, and then I got the reprint rights back to put it in the first book. And anybody can read it for free. Traces of a Man Who Disappeared. It's on the New York Times website somewhere.
I thought this was going to be the story that you told on the podcast about the estate that you cleaned out, and magically or mysteriously, a book and a picture appeared where they weren't there before.
Yes, right. And it's interesting you should mention that, because what I did is I told the first part of the story in the first book, so it's a bit of an Easter egg. That expression I was loving.
Yeah,
bit of an Easter egg. So in the second book has the rest of the story.
So could you tell Nicole just a synopsis of the story?
It's basically from just a clean out. I mean, when this is like a real hoarder home where you're walking on crap, we were walking on top of clothing and garbage, and it just went on and on. And the crews come in with shovels. I mean, it is like the show, except that it's like the smell-o-vision. And the woman who was the old lady that had been in the house, had felt bad for some homeless guy, and so she let him in that he could live in the basement. And then he brought in a friend and another friend, and then they started breeding pit bulls. So
Jesus.
Yeah, so it was bad. And so the house is just, because this is what someone's paid to do, is clean this out. So swept clean, everything's got to be gone. And you didn't miss anything. I mean, if there's anything there, you put it aside, and there were other dealers there, and you could go through it. And you might find a rosary or a little piece of pottery. It was the crap that wasn't worth anything to the guys that lived there, because anything that was there of value was gone, obviously. So it's really a sad story in that. And then going through the house the final time, because you always have to do that walkthrough, there's a book sitting in the middle of the room, one of the bedrooms, just sitting upright in the middle of the room, just waiting to be
sitting upright,
sitting upright,
not like laying on the ground.
No,
Oh
just
wow!
sitting upright, like
Wow.
what's So what's in that book?
I have to read "Selling Dead People" to find out the
Selling
first
Dead-
half of the story.
That's the
You
first.
have my attention.
That's the Vintage Confidentials and
It's confidential. It's coming
yeah,
up.
yeah.
But you've said on another show that you were a bit of a skeptic. Are you still a skeptic? You've
No,
seen some weird things.
no, and more people just have come to me, and I've been on a number of paranormal shows, which have been great, and talked to so many other people, and really, I've learned a lot about it. I have had a couple things happen to me personally. I mean, with family, that I don't want to talk about, but I was just, yeah. I've experienced a lot of death. We all have, in our lives. So I think I've just been open to it, and I mean, let's be honest, the antique business, it's a business of endings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know the person, you're disconnected from it, and you're able to do your job. But when you do know the person, and often I'm called in an estate for a friend of a friend or a friend, it's awful. it's just awful, because you know what needs to be done, but it's just so it's very sad.
Yeah, I was intrigued by the story. You were at your friend's wake, and
Mm-hmm.
and he asked you to appraise things on the sly, and apparently you weren't so sly.
No, and the interesting thing about that is that story. I'm still friends with that gentleman
Mm-hmm.
that was there, and I ran the story past him, and I said, "What did I get wrong? What did I get wrong?" And because I want to put this in the book, and he goes, "Yeah, that's what happened." But his father was very well. First off, he was diabetic. He was a Pisces. He liked me, and I liked him, and he was hysterical. He was a very funny guy. But his diabetes, where first you lose a foot, and then you lose a leg, then he goes blind. It's just and what a great guy. But this is the point, though, is he's this life force. So when they're sitting Shiva, which is where this happened,
Right.
Later on, it did not. It totally made sense why he decided to show up through whatever means he could, which is generally through electrical appliances.
Let me add that you were the Catholic outsider. You were the Catholic outsider at the Shiva.
Yeah. Going like mispronouncing Yarmulke. It's like caramel. And I was friends with the family for for years. It was confusing. It wasn't scary. It was confusing. It was just going like, what's going on? And this first, his mother was seeing these things, and we thought she's just grief stricken, and what are you going to do with her? Oh, mom, calm down. But then she said, you'll see. And then, and then we did. Basically, one of them was the unplugging the television and the television coming back on. That one was fuck. There's really no other way to explain that. And there were some other things there that seemed like it could have had an explanation for it, but really, in retrospect, no.
Now the TV came on, but it wasn't playing a show. It was just static.
It was just that static. Yeah, that whole was kind of poltergeist.
Yeah.
But again, they draw the energy so that they can make these things happen, and it totally makes sense. It's just that kind of a life force. Right? That's what I just go back to. It didn't surprise me that it would be him, because he was going to make sure he was at the party.
That's a hell of a story. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and again, we're going to need kind of the Reader's Digest to these things, but
they're all in the book.
They're all in the book, and I was always that's from Selling Dead People's things, but I'll often ask people like, what are their favorite stories, and that one comes up. There's one about the old lady who lived in just these 3 little rooms, and that is one of my favorites too. And in the next book, I've got a chapter about Raymond Hud, and Raymond Hud was a very, very well-known milliner, maker of hats here in Chicago, and went to the School of the Art Institute. He grew up in some little farm town, and he would make hats for the donkeys. I mean, this is when you're a gay kid in a little town in the 40s. This is what you're doing, making hats for the donkeys. I mean, it's adorable. 50s, whatever. So then he went to School of the Art Institute. And
You've come a long way, by the way, from putting hats on donkeys.
Oh yeah, right. To be accepted as that, but that's how talented he was, and did not move to New York. And I met, and I asked him about that once, and he said, "I'd rather be a big fish in a small pond." And so he really was. So he opened up a shop on Oak Street when he was like 24, 25. And Oak Street back then is Rodeo Drive, for this kid to be opening up a hat shop. Who is this? But would end up selling hats to all the Hollywood stars. And Phyllis Diller had like 500 of them or something like that in her collection. And there have been museum shows about his hats. They sell on eBay and Etsy, to this day. And I met him when he was, I think he might have been 66 or something like that. And I was in my 30s. And I would help him find things for his hats. And this is what's so cool about him. I mean, one thing to talk about goth. So he did a do you remember you guys are younger, but the Tylenol killings? Remember the Tylenol killings?
Oh, sure.
Right.
I mean, yeah. To tell people, somebody put cyanide in Tylenol bottles, and
they were going around
bottles now.
To Walgreens stores just randomly and putting cyanide in this. Okay, at the peak of that, he created a Tylenol hat with all the little yeah. This guy is I always think this is very kind of a Warhol thing in that he was really plugged in. He did an Iran.
That's so Warhol.
He did an Iran-Contra hat.
Oh yeah, that's so Warhol.
I used to tease him that he needed to do his Zapruder film hat, but he did
with a hole in it.
Yeah, well, he got that whole thing, but then you got her with the little hat, and it's almost a joke within a joke. And it had to be his idea anyway. Oh, he actually took his own. Google these things. Other people say this is bullshit. Google it, you'll find out it's true. He used his own gallstone when it was removed, and he put that in a hat. Right. I'm trying to think of there's some other I really like the shocking ones. The Tylenol one was good. But anyway, but I helped him make a couple things. But he wanted to do an Eiffel Tower hat. But you think of Eiffel Towers, first they're big, like souvenirs, right? They're big and they're metal. So no. So they can't be metal, they'll be too heavy. So they need to be the smallest ones, and they need to be plastic, but they also need to be old. So you couldn't have new ones. That wouldn't work because he's selling a vintage hat. So when I'd be running around to God knows where, some mall in Wisconsin, and I'd find one and I'd put it aside till I had like a shoebox full of them, and then invited him over, and he had a hat. He made that into a hat. I don't know what happened to the hat, but we had a friendship. And it's one of these people that I wanted, just like in Selling Dead People's Things, I write out Jacob Marley, which was an incredible store. And again, you guys would totally be into him because, oh my gosh, he was selling oddities and weird shit, was into this before anybody. The Archdiocese guys would actually come and shop. It'd be weird to see all these like muckety mucks from all these priests coming because he would have really good silver and crucifixes and things like that. Jacob Marley, check him out. Anyway, so I really wanted to bring him back. He passed, Raymond Hud, and that more people just need to know about him and his life. And he told me a story that broke my heart. And it's about the love of stuff and about the love of people. and how important these things are, and how one turn of an event can just change your life for the better or for the worse. And I thought this was a great opportunity to tell this story and to kind of put him back and into the, not that he needs more attention, but I think he does. And I was just thrilled that I was friends with someone that he would let me even be his friend. So,
I mean, you're quite a guy yourself. I mean, Nicole, can you believe that's been an hour and 20 minutes? We've been talking about antiques.
Shoot this guy.
It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
What a great show. We still have not had a bad show in 2022. They've all been great. One more question, and we're going to have you back because we just scratched the surface with you.
Sure.
But what is an example of a haunted object that you have bought? And did you sell it right away? Did it freak you out?
So I think I really have one that comes to mind, in that I was confident there's something wrong with this thing. And that's a desk that we bought, and a guy brought it to us, just Mission Oak Partners desk. So when a Partners desk, it opens on both sides. So Mission Oak, teens, nice. It brings it to us, and it was cheap. And it was like, oh, yeah, we could flip that. And we sold it, and it was brought back. And generally, we don't let people bring things back, but we were starting out, and it was like, well, you don't want to piss people off. But I couldn't give a reason why. I don't want this anymore. It was like that. So it's like, or it didn't fit. Well, what part of it didn't fit? It's you knew the size of it when you bought it. I'm not arguing with people, just think. So it had actually sold a couple times. And then it finally sold. And I tell the story in a different way in the book, because I always like to find a different way to tell a story. Put it that way. That's one thing I've learned, is writing, looking for it. I'm sure Nicole could agree. If you can find a different angle on it, kind of makes it a little more, entertaining for the reader.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the fact, I knew a lot more about what had happened, and the woman who would end up buying it and keeping it and telling me the problems she had with it, which was actually kind of cute, because so a couple did come in and buy it, and it left, and actually, we get a better price. You sure can. Here we go. And she buys it, and basically it was the drawers would just open by themselves. I mean, you leave the room and the drawers are open. You come back in, the drawers are closed. And they were blaming it on everything, going, did we have it in the wrong place in the room? Is the floor uneven? It's the things that you would do, and our husbands looking at the glides on it. But here's the cool thing about this desk, is that when you pulled out each of the drawers, someone had burned a story into the bottom of each of the drawers.
Wow.
But it was, I always say, but it was like hieroglyphics. It seemed like Old English. It wasn't anything you could read. It was just another language entirely, and just really cool. And then the main desk drawer, where you could slide things through to your partner, right? So same thing. Underneath it was just all this writing, which must have taken forever. And what did it say? I don't know. So that would be the question. First, it's like, what do you know about this desk? What can I tell somebody? Well, a guy came in and sold it to me, and he couldn't wait to get rid of it. That's the end of my story, right? Except while it was in the store, my salespeople would have problems with it, which I did not know. And again, I find this out afterwards.
Well, what kind of problems?
Well, so we had this Wrigleyville, so we had it in the basement, and which is all these cool dinette sets and Eames chairs, and but it's still a basement. So there's no windows. It's just fluorescent lights. It's a basement. I had these two guys working together who, it was funny because they really didn't get along. And one was straight, one was gay, and they were just two opposite people. They're both great. They were really great workers, and they were down in the basement the one day, and they both said that the drawers opened up, and then these orbs of light just started bouncing all over the place, all over the basement. Like it was like the light was looking for a place to go. Well, up the stairs they run, screaming to me, going, they're telling me this. I'm going, what the fuck? It's Saturday. We're like a little busy for this. So that was the first inkling that I had. And then it was like, oh, that's why this thing keeps getting returned. So, though the woman who ended up buying it never complained about the balls of light. I told her that it had happened, but she said that wasn't what, and she didn't. She says, I'm not really sure why I'm calling. I'm not calling to return it because I love it. And her grandmother had a desk like that, which is why she wanted to buy it in the first place, a partner's desk. Though it's just something they ended up just living with and accepting. And I did tell her my story that I've just told you, because this is what I know about it.
So she ended up keeping it.
She ended up keeping it. Yeah. But the writing on the, again, I just should have taken pictures. When you're selling stuff, when stuff's coming in and out, so many.
Yeah,
things.
you don't
Picture. What was I thinking? Also, that was an era that you really didn't, because this is like the 90s. So it really wasn't so much about photography and.
Right. You would have to,
the hieroglyphics.
Have to get film developed, all that stuff.
Yeah,
back in my day, we used to go to the store and get film developed.
I remember when. Yeah. So I hope that scratches your paranormal itch. How's that?
I'll tell you, you scratched a lot of itches tonight. You've been a pleasure to talk to. A great guest. Nicole. Nicole's been fascinated the whole time. I've been watching her, and it's not just because you have 4 cats. But definitely we definitely want to talk to you again. And I'm gonna, like I say, I'm gonna get your book for my father for Father's Day.
Yeah.
I think I might get Nicole a copy because I know she wants to read some of these stories.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
tell everybody how they can get your book, your upcoming book, all your social media, anything you want to promote. Be a whore, go right at it.
Well, if I knew it was that kind of a show.
You knew it was that kind of a
show. So you can go to sellingdeadpeoplesthings.com, and you can buy it direct from the site, and I'll sign it for you. You can get it on eBay. There's also, what I really think is fun, I got to put this out there, how many people resell the book. I've made people a lot of money because people love
really.
Yeah,
it's a good it's got good resale value.
Yeah, people resell the book. Damn it, I'm losing money. I'm not, but it's funny. So that you can find me on Facebook, Duane Scott Cerny. You can find me on Instagram, Selling Dead People's Things, on TikTok, and you should check out the store. So that's BAM Chicago.com, and there's a music video that we shot there, which is, I wrote it. A friend of mine wrote the music. I wrote the lyrics. I'm really proud of that. So that was kind of a way for these parts of my life to come together and do
I've seen that video and it's very good. With your permission, I'll include it in the YouTube.
Please,
the show.
Please. Yeah, and guys, this is a blast. Thank you so much.
Sellingdeadpeople.com, and definitely, you're a natural born storyteller.
And next month, Vintage Confidential, and that's
Vintage Confidential. Can't wait for that too.
VintageConfidential.com. So we're launching that in about another 2 weeks, something like that. I'm excited. Last book hit number 1 3 times. 3 times. I have no idea how that happened.
It was number 1 on the Antiques and Collectibles.
Yep.
It was one of the top 20 LGBT books. It's all over the charts. It's such a crossover.
It was me and John Waters. Seriously. And I was like, that's like, I can die now, right?
It doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't get better than that. I'm a huge fan. And I'm a huge fan of you guys. So I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Duane. And Nicole, tell everybody how they can get your book and anything else you want to promote.
You can get my book on lulu.com and just type in Nicole 6 and it'll come up. It's my first book I published with them. You can find me at Nicole 6 Books on Instagram and Nicole H6 on Facebook.
And I'm Goth Comedian on all social media. This has been a blast. Thank you, Duane. Thank you, Nicole. Everybody, have a wonderfully creepy week. Bye.